You know what they say about old trappers?
I know what they say
Uh-huh.
about old trappers.
Old trappers never die, they just smell that way.
Yeah, right.
For years, Mountain Men fans have admired Tom Orr as one of the last true frontiersmen, a man who seemed untouched by modern life, living quietly in the rugged wilderness of Montana. Viewers fell in love with his calm spirit, his skill with tanning hides, and his ability to survive where most people wouldn't last a single night. But recently, after cameras stopped rolling and Tom disappeared from the public eye, something deeply unsettling happened. When a few close friends ventured out to check on him, they stumbled upon something inside his remote cabin that left them speechless. Tom's cabin had always been a sanctuary, hand-built from logs, warmed by fire, surrounded by the silence of nature. But when the door creaked open this time, it wasn't the familiar scent of pine or the crackling of the hearth that greeted them. It was the eerie stillness of a place frozen in time. His tools were laid out neatly, as if waiting for his return. His handmade moccasins still hung near the door, but on the far side of the room, something was wrong. What they found that day has since become the subject of hushed conversation among locals and fans alike. Some say it was a hidden collection of letters that revealed the real reason Tom vanished. Others insist it was a disturbing sign of just how much he had been struggling in his final days on the mountain. Whatever the truth, it was clear that Tom's peaceful. Frontier life wasn't as simple as it appeared on TV, because what they uncovered inside that cabin didn't just shock them, it completely changed how the world would remember the quiet, humble legend known as Tom Orr. Tom Orr was never an ordinary man. Long before Mountain Men made him a household name, he was already living a life that most people could barely comprehend. A life built on grit, self-reliance, and a deep respect for the wild. Born in Illinois in 1943, Tom grew up with an unshakable love for the outdoors. By his teens, he was already a skilled horseman, spending most of his time working on ranches and perfecting his craft as a rodeo cowboy. The thrill of the rodeo circuit became his life for years, until one day, after countless injuries and a lifetime of hard landings, he decided to walk away. Together with his wife Nancy, Tom set out to find a place far from the noise of modern life. They ended up deep in Montana's Yaak Valley, one of the most remote and unforgiving places in the country. There, surrounded by towering pines and snow-capped peaks, they built a log cabin with their own hands. They had no electricity, no running water, and no backup plan. Just the will to survive and live freely. It wasn't easy, but that was exactly how Tom wanted it. When Mountain Men premiered on the History Channel, Tom instantly stood out. While other cast members showed their own versions of rugged living, Tom embodied something different. He wasn't pretending to be tough. He truly was. Whether it was crafting buckskin clothing, trapping in the freezing wilderness, or repairing his tools by lantern light, every frame of Tom's life on screen reflected a purity that few people today could understand. But as much as fans admired his lifestyle, they didn't see the full picture. The mountains can be as cruel as they are beautiful, and as Tom aged, the challenges of surviving year after year in near isolation began to wear him down. Winters in Yaak Valley are brutal. Temperatures can drop below zero for weeks, snow piles up to the windows, and access to town becomes nearly impossible. Nancy, always his closest partner, worried constantly about his health. His body was slowing down, and though he rarely complained, the signs were clear. Still, Tom refused to give up the life he loved. He often told interviewers that he didn't fear death. What he feared was being trapped in a world that no longer made sense to him. Modern life, with its endless noise and distractions, had no place for a man who found peace in the silence of falling snow. But friends began to notice small changes. He became quieter, less willing to talk about the show, and more protective of his privacy. When production ended, Tom and Nancy quietly disappeared from public life without fanfare or farewell. For a while, fans assumed they were simply enjoying retirement. But as months passed with no updates, no appearances, and no word from the couple, concern grew. Neighbors hadn't seen smoke rising from the chimney in weeks. The old snowmobile tracks leading to their cabin were gone. Finally, one of Tom's closest friends decided to hike the long trail up the mountain to check on them. When he reached the cabin, everything seemed frozen in time. The door was locked, the windows covered with frost, and the air eerily silent. There was no movement, no sound of dogs, no sign of life at all. That's when he noticed something strange near the door. Tom's handmade moccasins, neatly hung as if waiting for him to return. It was then that an uneasy feeling began to creep in. Tom Orr had lived through some of the harshest conditions imaginable, but this silence, this stillness, felt different. Something wasn't right, and what that friend would soon uncover inside the cabin would shake even the toughest hearts in Yaak Valley, forever changing how people remembered the man who once represented the true soul of the wilderness. When Tom Orr's friend reached the cabin that cold morning, the air felt unnaturally still. Snow blanketed the roof, untouched and perfect, and no smoke curled from the chimney. For years, that cabin had been a symbol of life, of warmth, of resilience, of Tom's unbreakable bond with the wild. But now it looked abandoned, frozen in time. The only sound was the crunch of snow underfoot as he made his way to the porch. He knocked several times, calling Tom's name. No answer. After a moment of hesitation, he gently pushed the door open, and it creaked loudly in protest. Inside, the sight was both haunting and heartbreakingly familiar. Everything was exactly as Tom had left it. His tools hung neatly on the wall, a half-finished piece of leather lay on the table, and a pot still sat on the cold wood stove. It was as if time had stopped mid-moment. Nancy's rocking chair was placed by the window, facing the snowy landscape outside, and beside it was one of Tom's old hats resting on the armrest. But what drew the friend's attention most was the eerie quiet. Even the usual smell of pine smoke and cured hides was gone. The place didn't feel lived in anymore. It felt like a shrine. He searched the small cabin carefully, calling out their names again and again, but no one responded. Then he noticed something unusual near the back door. A small wooden box sitting on the floor, sealed shut with a leather strap. Tom wasn't a man who left things lying around, so its presence immediately stood out. When he carefully unfastened the strap, what he found inside made his heart race. The box contained a collection of handwritten notes, dozens of them, bundled together with twine. Each was written in Tom's familiar handwriting, dated within the past few months. They weren't letters to anyone in particular, but more like journal entries. The early ones spoke about simple things, weather, trapping, hunting. But the tone began to shift as the months went on. Tom wrote about hearing things outside the cabin at night, strange sounds in the woods, footsteps in the snow when no one was around. Nancy's name appeared repeatedly, always with concern. In one note, Tom wrote that she had fallen ill and refused to go down to town for help. He mentioned his worry, but also his trust that the mountain would take care of her. The last note, dated just weeks before the friend's visit, ended abruptly. "If this is my last winter here, then let it be on my land, with my hands, and with the life I chose." The friend stepped outside again, shaken, but determined to keep searching. He checked the shed, the barn, even the frozen creek where Tom often fished. But there was no sign of Tom or Nancy anywhere. It was as if the wilderness had swallowed them whole. News of the discovery spread quickly through the small Montana community. Neighbors and old friends formed search parties, combing through the forest and snow-covered trails for any trace of the couple. The Mountain Men production team, when contacted, declined to comment, saying only that they hadn't been in contact with Tom for quite some time. As the search went on, A grim realization began to sink in among those who knew him best. Tom had often said that he wanted to fade into the wild when his time came. He didn't believe in hospitals or doctors. He believed in nature's balance, in life returning to the earth. But still, one question haunted everyone who cared about him. If Tom truly wanted to disappear peacefully, why were there so many unsettling signs left behind? And what else might be hidden inside that quiet cabin, waiting to be discovered? As search teams scoured the valley, the mystery of Tom Orr's disappearance grew darker. The cabin, once a simple home filled with warmth and life, had become the center of countless rumors. Some believed Tom and Nancy had simply moved away to spend their final years in peace. Others whispered that something had happened up there, something too strange for anyone to explain. But when investigators returned to the cabin for a second, more thorough inspection, they stumbled upon something none of them were prepared for. Behind the cabin's main room was a small storage area that had always been used for tanning supplies and extra tools. One volunteer noticed a section of the wooden floor that sounded hollow when stepped on. Curious, he pried open a plank, revealing a narrow set of steps leading into a hidden space beneath the cabin. The passage smelled of earth and age, as if it hadn't been opened in years. With flashlights in hand, they carefully descended into the darkness. What they found below was unsettling. The room was small, barely large, enough to stand in, but it was filled with items that told a story. There were animal hides hanging from the ceiling, old photographs of Tom and Nancy in their younger years, and rows of glass jars filled with preserved herbs and homemade remedies. But in one corner of the room sat something completely unexpected: an old wooden chest, locked shut. When the chest was opened, it revealed a collection of personal mementos, letters, photographs, and keepsakes spanning decades. Most of it was ordinary, but among the items lay a small leather-bound book. The handwriting inside was unmistakably Tom's. These weren't the same kind of journal entries found earlier upstairs. These were different, more emotional, more revealing. In one entry, dated over a year before his disappearance, Tom wrote about his struggle with growing old in the wilderness. He confessed that the harsh winters were becoming too much to bear, and that Nancy's health had been declining. He wrote about sleepless nights, about how the silence that once brought him peace now filled him with dread. "The mountains feel heavier this year," one line read. "It's as if the land knows we don't belong here anymore." Another entry struck even harder. It mentioned hearing voices in the woods, voices that called his name when no one was there. He wrote about seeing shapes in the distance, lights that moved between the trees, and the feeling that someone or something was watching. The more the entries continued, the more distressed they became, until the final one, scrawled in unsteady handwriting, ended with just 5 words: "We're not alone up here." The search teams were divided. Some believed these writings were the reflections of an aging man growing weary of isolation. Others thought there was something deeper, a warning of some kind. No trace of Tom or Nancy was ever found, but the chilling contents of that hidden room left everyone unsettled. In the days that followed, word spread across Montana. Fans of mountain men filled online forums with speculation. Some said Tom had gone off into the woods to live out his final days in peace. Others believed the couple had met a tragic fate that nature alone could explain. And then there were those who thought the truth was something much stranger, that maybe Tom had uncovered something he was never meant to see. Whatever happened inside that cabin and the hidden space beneath it, one thing became clear: Tom Orr's life had been far more complicated than anyone imagined. The man who once represented the strength and simplicity of mountain living had left behind a mystery that no one could fully solve. The shocking discoveries inside Tom Orr's cabin have left fans of mountain men both amazed and unsettled. For decades, Tom had been admired as a symbol of rugged independence, a man who lived in harmony with the harsh wilderness of Montana, surviving by skill, intuition, and sheer determination. But the hidden room beneath his cabin, filled with journals, photographs, and mysterious personal items, revealed a side of him that few could have imagined. Behind the calm exterior seen on television, Tom had been quietly grappling with the isolation, dangers, and uncertainties that come with a life entirely on his own terms. The journals, in particular, offered insight into his final years. Early entries reflected a life of routine and focus, checking traps, tanning hides, and tracking wildlife. But over time, the tone changed. He wrote about hearing unexplained noises in the woods, noticing strange movements in the tree line, and feeling the weight of the solitude that had once brought him peace. There were references to fleeting lights in the forest, mysterious tracks, and the eerie sense of being watched. Each entry seemed to capture both the practical mind of a survivalist and the emotional toll of living so completely alone. The final pages were perhaps the most haunting, abruptly ending with an unfinished thought and the words, "We're not alone up here." Despite the unsettling nature of these discoveries, the cabin also reflected Tom's careful preparation and legacy. Every tool, supply, and record was organized, showing a man who had meticulously planned for any eventuality. Even in isolation, Tom's life was structured, methodical, and deeply connected to the land around him. His work ethic and attention to detail are lessons in survival, demonstrating that thriving in the wilderness requires not just skill, but also foresight, patience, and respect for nature. The mystery of what ultimately happened to Tom and Nancy has fueled speculation among fans, locals, and even fellow survivalists. Some believe they quietly left the valley to live in secret elsewhere. Others suspect the unforgiving Montana wilderness may have finally claimed them, as it has for so many who challenge it. While the truth may never be known, the impact of Tom Orr's life remains unmistakable. His story embodies the spirit of perseverance, independence, and the human desire to live fully, even in the face of immense challenges. Tom's cabin, now a site of curiosity and reverence, stands as a testament to his life. It is a place of survival, craftsmanship, and mystery, symbolizing the enduring spirit of a man who chose the wilderness over convenience, solitude over fame, and a life of authenticity over the comfort of the modern world. For fans of mountain men, the discoveries in Tom's cabin serve as a powerful reminder. While the mountains can be harsh and unforgiving, they also preserve the courage, resilience, and wisdom of those who dare to call them home.